Hello again. And we will jump into Photoshop in a minute because I did record some of the things, and this one's kind of quite important. I was doing a lot more line art on the rail because there's an option of exporting that into SVG, I believe, format, and then bringing that into Blender, which helped a lot to just having something in there. But in the end, I think I took these drawings and just pasted it into Photoshop without like using the render because it didn't have the proper shape to it. It was quite flat, so it didn't really work. I had to like it was a pain, not gonna lie. I really hated doing that railing. But yeah, having that clean line art helped. All right, let's open Photoshop. So this is the first render that I did. And as you can see, there's a bit of stuff that still needs to be fixed, but I've added a lot of that detail in the background, which was mainly like assets from Sketchfab, if not all. Adding some plans, some little details here and there, but again, not doing like crazy work here. You can see all the textures are kind of stretched and out of place. But that's fine because this is not, I'm not trying to show you what's in there exactly. I'm trying to give you an idea of what's there. And so that's what I bring into Photoshop. And that's where I start to kind of think about what I want the story to be. Let me just bring this up. What I want the story to be. And not the actual story, but like the story of the painting, right? And after a lot of trials, I came up with this idea of the atmosphere, the colors, and you see like rough sketches. So this is kind of like where I was adding in on colors and fixing up colors and fixing up some little details here and there, and putting in the lady and the grandfather, and thinking about the light, how this warm light is gonna hit with the blue light that I want to come from the windows. And there was a little bit of stuff that wasn't working, like for example this light over here and this light on the desk. It was working from when I was walking around the room, but from this perspective it wasn't doing the best, right? So I was like, scrap that, I'm getting rid of those lights. Maybe there's gonna be a light somewhere from coming from the pillar here, from the inside rather than here, because it was kind of, I didn't like the line that it was doing here, the straight line. I didn't think it was working too well. So once I got rid of that, that kind of balanced it a little bit better for me. And that rough paint over gave me confidence to finish the project, basically. Because I was really like, I don't know, that rough sketch, paint over. I literally sat down with myself as if I was the supervisor. So I was like, okay, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this needs to be fixed. This needs to be a little bit different, and direct it into something that was more nice without getting caught up on the details. So if you've been in an environment like student environment, you know exactly what I'm talking about. How they sketch roughly over your stuff and you're like, yeah, I know, I meant to add this thing and I meant to add this thing, but like this reference then is it's so much easier with that kind of reference to go into those details later, because you see them, it's clear, and you remember about them because it's just right there. So after this, I render another one, and I have a little bit of different lighting now because I wanna get, I also, the wallpaper is smaller. The lighting is different because I want to get that atmosphere that I was getting in the paint over. We direct the light a little bit different. There is now light coming from the behind the pillar that we don't see, but we can still feel it, that it's there. But it's not distracting on the eye right now when we look at the picture. We have different lighting behind here because it was a bit, when I was painting it over, I was painting it out. So we decided on having a dim light. I was talking like we, like me and the supervisor, me the artist and me the supervisor, we decided. But I was painting over that light here, and so just getting rid of it altogether was best, and then putting a little bit more light here from coming from the windows, because that's where the foggy thing would come. So it's kind of like prepping that scene to the paint over that you're going to be doing, because the first one that I did was kind of flat, right? Well, it still had that, it had some light, but it was scattered and wasn't the best. And I knew it wasn't the best because it wasn't feeling in a 3D, so that's why I brought in Photoshop to test it, which then allowed me to have more balanced lighting. So when I do renders, I got a lot of like this is all the stuff. So there is like an option to render everything on layers. So this is all layers, and this comes in handy if you don't have too much paint over, because then you can easily select every element, right? So I would use it for like I think it was quite useful for the chandelier and for some elements that I just wanted to select quickly and not spend too much time on it, even though it's quite heavy because there's 1,001 element in here. But then like selecting one, and then that takes you, it's so much easier to have the ability to select, especially if you're not doing a lot of paint over it. So that was one of the things that I had. And then another thing is I usually will render out a shadow, because then you can very easily go into channels and adjust them. Make a copy out of this, go into levels and bring out whatever you need out of this. This one's quite, bring out all of those like little shadows, secondary shadows, or even like darken the whole room here with a little bit paint over. And I usually do it in channels, so then I can select out. So like, for example, this is one of the layers that I had. So if I select that, I have all of the light selected, and it's just, half of the work done. Which is exactly why I like doing this in 3D in the first place, because it saves you time. So I usually get the shadow. I usually get normals because it's just easier to select the directions. Although I don't think I used it. Sometimes some of this I use, some of this I don't. Then I have the noisy image. I have the mist. Mist quite important as well. I think it really helps to add the depth, especially if the render you're done is looking a bit flat. I like to render out the glossy stuff, again, because the glossy stuff can help bring out, even though the showcase shouldn't have the glossy, it can help out bring some detail from certain objects, especially the ones that are shiny. Gloss, and so it is gloss indirect and gloss direct. I like to use those, and this really helped with the chandelier. I think, I don't know if you see, that's what I brought out from the gloss direct. And I could paint in that detail, but I can also render out an extra layer and select it and then just add the details. So it saves so much time. Emit was useless in this case, but I'd sometimes like to get the emit as well. Emission, like color. So this is diffuse. You can really see how I was not caring about the textures here, but you can't tell. It's fine. And of course forever grateful for AO. Very, very important, and combined with what I paint on. So these are my layers. Most of the times that's what I render. And then what I do is I go over the top with, so I usually like to have a base painting. So this is my base, right? My render is my base. And then if I need to do changes, I do the changes on the painting, on the base. So this is exactly what this is, all of these layers. So changing the chandelier, adding a little bit more depth into it, changing the color of the suitcase, adding the the design to the desk, adding more stuff to the desk, adding the painting, adding the carpets, changing the color of the curtains, adding the rail, changing. See, I've changed the wood because it was crap. Adding the frame, adjusting the frame, and all of that. That was, so this is still the base, and on top of the base goes the atmosphere, so the actual color. So that's where all of that, the light comes in. It looks a bit crazy here, I'm not gonna lie. So usually I will have that on a separate layer, and this atmosphere is usually quite messy. But again, I'm painting for myself, so I would just like go through the layers for you guys. I'm painting for myself, so I'm not too concerned with how messy my files are right now. And yeah, adding, just, you see how many layers this is. This is like layer on layer on layer, bringing out stuff, hiding stuff, bringing out more. This was, see, this is the selection that I showed you before. Adding more lights, the rim lights, adding secondary lighting, more detail, more oomph, and you know, all that kind of stuff. And then from this one, I start to add stuff that are missing. Of course, we need the guy and the lady. So the base of the lady, and I go in with more detail. And the guy, that's the suitcase, with more stuff on her. The guy. Oh, this guy was off, right? So then I've got a few layers that I usually like to add. So I take everything and I merge this down, and I do a few things. So I will do, depending on what kind of effect I'm going for. This one I've done, so this is to kind of bring out the shadows a little bit more. So it's like I think just a grain. Then I added another filter on top of that to bring out a little bit of that detail on the paneling, because I thought that this is it's not popping enough. And then final merge is just like me final merging it. And then this is the paint over. And this is, and you can see how from first paint over how it changed and kind of flashed out more. Yeah. This is the cutout. The cutout is a separate Blender file, just for the purpose of, like, I actually did go in and cut out those pieces, and also I didn't need the full render with. No, I actually did full render with the textures. Let's just take this everything out, and let's just get to the bottom of what I rendered. So this is what I rendered. It looks a lot different to what you see in the final. And again, I'm doing, so I think for this one I started with the line art. So I put like white layer and just painted. So again, I've rendered that with layers, just because you never know which layer you're gonna need, and sometimes it's just easier to just render everything and then just have it if you need it. So again, I've rendered the shadow, rendered normal, noisy, mist, emissions, diffuse, combine. But then also what I had is workbench renders. And then this one, so this is like a workbench flat color with line art. And this is basically what my base for my line art was. And this is just some of the selections that I've done. And there's just no better way to say it. I just like had this underneath, some music on, and just sketched everything over. All that wood paneling, just in with little brush and just going over it. You can't speed it up. Like after this line art, I started adding the detail. So some line art was different than what the render was. So like for example, this curtain, I had to add a little bit more on some of the objects. I've added like pillows and little details where it needed to be. So I had to fill that in, change the colors, adding those codes as the first paintings that I had that I didn't really like. I've changed those paintings. So it's still the same tactics, right? I'm doing the base first and then adding light on top of that later. And so changing the carpet, adding a bit of light, and then working on the rail, and then adding that atmosphere, and trying to remember that this cutout is supposed to hold as much information as it can. I'm really trying to make everything look clear rather than, just pretty. So I'm not concerned with the same lighting anymore. I'm just trying to make it visible. Every detail make it visible. And once I had that, I was able to go into more detail about the floor plan. What's the type of profile I've got, the type of wood paneling, what wood it is, what kind of putting in different color, so it's easy to see which panel is where, and also floor plan, so they you can position everything how it needs to be, and having that kind of more in detail explanation of the little things that you can't really see here. You get an idea of what it is, but it's where the information is actually here of how to design it. And going into like little details like that, I like architecture, so that's just fun to me. But again, all the time thinking about if I was to give it to somebody to model or to make, what information they would need. And there's more information I could give, that's for sure. But I was again trying to limit myself into how much detail I go into. And then this one is kind of like an overview of the stairs. So it's more clear to see the detail, because obviously this is so small here, like you can't really see and you can't really see here either exactly what it is. So it's important that I had this like flat on view with the herons, and then flat on view with the staircase, and then it kind of make it like a presentation out of it, right? So you kind of want it to make presentable, and then having that little explanation of the story and why this is going this way, and why if someone enters the room, the daughter and then the parents are looking down, but also the herons are looking. So you kind of like the desk is kind of the stage of the guest that comes in, is being observed from all the angles. Also these paintings are I haven't, like, this is painted over from Victorian portrait artist. So because at the beginning I was like, I'm gonna design those characters, but I really ran out of time and energy for this. So I only like changed their a little bit their expressions to make them look a little bit more like they're looking down, and like, you know, have that kind of like unnerving gaze to them, because they were looking very, very kind and very nice, which I didn't want. So this is just sake of presentation for me and for my portfolio. That's it, guys. We've made it. It looks all right. I'm not saying I'm crazy about it, but I'm also not mad about it. I think it's just not really, it's not really what I usually draw. So it's a little bit outside of the things that I like. But it was still fun to design, and it was fun to explore. And generally speaking, I had fun, and I'm glad that I recorded everything, because I think it could make for a fun videos to watch for anybody that looks for some inspiration, or like just, you know, pick a brain of another artist. So if you liked it, let me know. Don't give me ideas or critique, please. I've done it now. I'm not coming back. Unless you wanted to do it for the future reference, but there's 100% there's some stuff that I will still like to change or adjust. I know there's certain parts where I'm like, this is cheeky here, that should be fixed, but you know, you have to finish at some point. And I think finishing the project is more important than having it perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. And it's better to finish this, learn from it, and apply the knowledge to the next one. And this one took a lot of time, because of the fact that I was scared to take on some bigger concepts that I was like, ooh, I don't know how to design that. I don't know what to do with this. Because when you're designing for yourself, you know, you have to put limits to yourself. If you don't do it, then you have so many possibilities, and that can be very overwhelming to decide to deal with. That's exactly why I was like so hung up on having that story. But sometimes it's because it's your art, so you wanna do it justice, and especially if you're spending a lot of time on it, it's kind of difficult to let it go. But it's for the best. Let it go. Don't get too attached to it too quickly, especially too quickly. But generally speaking, don't get too attached to it. The sooner you can do it, the more progress you can make, for sure. That's one of the things that I know about, but I still keep on forgetting. Not forgetting. You just, well, yeah, you forget. You open new project and you're bright-eyed and you think that's gonna be different this time, but then you kind of fall into the same patterns. But as I think knowing about those patterns, recognizing them, and then shaking yourself off of it, it's quite important to do. I'm starting a different project, which I'm excited about, but it has a lot of elements that I'm also very scared to tackle. It's another challenge, which is fun, but if it works out, but I hope it goes well. I don't know. We'll see. So thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna link, if you wanna see all of them in like better quality, their links are gonna be in the description, and my links to everything, whatever. And let me know what your projects you're working on, for sure. I'm really interested to see. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Have a lovely day, evening, whatever, life, and keep on being an artist. We need them.